get to it. Hello, and welcome to Comic Book Herald Live. Hey, everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. Joined today by Brian Michael Bendis for an interview talking phenomena. Got book 2, Matilda's Quest, out right now. Going to talk about the comics career. We got books like Masterpiece, The Ones, Joy Operations, all in motion from Jinxworld and what's going on via Dark Horse Comics right now. And then, of course, if there's a little bit of time, maybe we'll talk a little Marvel, a little DC on the back end. I don't know. It's all Jinxworld all the time right now, right?
It is, but because time has no meaning anymore and what was past is present and future, everyone's reading everything all at once. I got people reading our Daredevil like it's brand new and then reading Masterpiece at the same time and experiencing them both together. That was not in my head while we were making Masterpiece, but it just occurred. It's weird. Like, even it's kind of a post-pandemic thing where not everything that is what was be considered old is old anymore. It's like just a big chunk of stuff that people are reading now, and it could be 20 years old and it's fresh as a daisy. So it's really interesting. So it's all happening all at once, and I really love that people are finding our Marvel and DC stuff while we're trying to build all this new stuff that we're building.
Yeah. I did notice that. So with Masterpiece, you got this awesome new character, the Paragon, and it's you and Alex Maleev. But the second I see those red glasses, I'm like back in Daredevil land. Like, there is that. Do you feel like with Alex, it's you have to work to get out of Daredevil mode to like, or do you not feel that sort of like legacy?
No, we first of all, like, we personally have done enough work where we've proven we're more than just a Daredevil run.
Yeah.
Like we certainly, we've done Halo and Scarlet and Event Leviathan. We've got a lot of Moon Knight. We got a lot of stuff under our belt that. But while we were in this mode of creating these new criminals, there was some signature things that Alex wanted to bring to our creator-owned world, and they're just little glasses. But when I saw them, I did laugh. But he genuinely loves drawing glasses like that. So hold on a second, my alarm just went off to call you. There you go. Anyway, so we don't mind that little tip of the hat, but the characters could not be more different on every conceivable level. So
no, I love. So I guess we'll start. I love the Paragon so much.
Thank you. We do too. Thank you so much.
I feel like you can tell. I feel like there's the second that character shows up, there's just like an energy and sort of like I don't know. Just reading it, I was like, oh, like they're having fun, like making their own heist movie in a way that you feel it prior to that, but there's just, I don't know, there's like an energy of you putting the band together with Masterpiece. For folks who aren't familiar, so Masterpiece is the book out now. The fifth issue just came out this week.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all can check that out. I think it's gonna go. Is it gonna go 6? And then
go 6, and we'll see if the schedules realign. But I would love to do more.
Yeah, and it's sort of it's like a generational heist thing, right? So it's like the main character is this girl named Masterpiece. She's a high schooler. Her parents were these like world famous, like Ocean's 11, like they can rob anyone kind of characters. And now she's put in this position where she has to try to do the same and one up this, evil billionaire, right? Who's kind of got her under his thumb. And then the Paragon shows up, and I won't spoil much, but it's this fascinating character. With Masterpiece, like how you can feel all the ways that you want to sort of differentiate yourself from the Heist Legacy. And sort of all that stuff. But like, what were the conversations between you and Alex in terms of like, these are the things we love, these are the things we don't love, here's how we blow it up? Like, what was the approach there?
Well, it's my approach to a lot of genre, which is, all right, I know what I liked and I liked it a lot. Don't just imitate the thing that you liked, but try to find an angle in that maybe can allow me to replicate how I felt during certain times, but at the same time elevating. Like with Masterpiece, we want to do the criminal story, which can be a heist story, and there was a lot of actual true crime family events that inspired the motions of it. But I also think that as we're moving along, things that were exciting in the genre kind of date out as we move. And if you're tackling the genre that you love, part of I see our obligation is to see where we can move it forward. Like there's a tendency, particularly nerds of a certain age, to like stay with the genre with exactly the way they liked it when they were 9 years old. And that's totally normal, totally fine. But I do think that what I've learned over the years is anything you can do that yes ands an idea, that elevates an idea past itself. So it was thinking about the multi-generational idea of a crime family, like there's young people and old people working together to take down someone. That was something I hadn't seen before. And then thinking about the Paragon, do you remember there was a lot of like real life street vigilantes in the late 90s? There was like Felix Jones, and some of it was like comic book adjacent and some of it wasn't, but there was actual people out there like beating the shit out of people and doing stuff like that. And I often think about, where are they now? Like that, what a choice you made in the 90s, and what's your job like? And so the Paragon came from feeling deeply about what it would be like to be a complete force of nature in your youth, and then here you are a little older, and it just, the reputation carries with you whether you can do it or not. That's kind of like the modern version of the old gunslinger, So and he still has it in him to unleash hell, and I just, the whole part of that character made me so excited, and I think what you're referencing as far as our energy goes is that we got excited, like, oh, we found something that we haven't seen before in a genre that is very well worn by many, many people, and that gets very exciting.
The thing I liked about that too is that Paragon, and then some of these other players too, like the I forget her name, but the woman who is kind of like, she comes in at the very end as the honeypot the team here in the latest issue, and there's this feel of these supporting characters that like if you announce tomorrow like you're doing a Paragon series, I'd be like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Like that book could exist, but I like that that's not the book. Like it's that there's that world within them, but it's very there's a lot of potential there, but it's not doing the, well, we know we can do a superhero thing, like you said at the top of this, like you and Alex have done that. It's just a flavor kind of in the mix.
Well, the lesson from like writing Avengers for all those years is really you only have the characters for a little bit of real estate. Like when you're writing a solo book like Spider-Man or Iron Man, you get to hang out and like really dive into sometimes minutia of the characters every day. But with Avengers, it's like, all right, what's important about this character? What do we have to say right now? What's unique? What's fun? What's funny? And so you can really like distill a scene into both character and plot. And I do find myself to this book where but the difference is we don't know any of these characters. Like we only know what Emma is learning as we go. And so make sure that everything we see is really, distilled down to its essence of a story and character. So thank you. Cause that really a lot of thought went into that idea of like, how much information do we need to give? How much can we give? What's the best information to give? And really build all these characters all at once. And by issue 5, which we're now, you're like, oh, I know them all.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's down to their webcomics even, right? It's like I've read Masterpiece's webcomic, a few chapters.
I may have drawn it.
Yeah, exactly. Shifting gears a little bit, we set this up through Abrams to talk a little phenomena. I talked to Andre Lima Araujo last week about the work. I love Andre stuff, and the 2 year back. Yeah, you can tell. You're back here with book 2. So book 1 was one of my favorite comics of a couple years ago, The Golden City of Eyes.
Thank you.
I was super excited.
I didn't know that. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm endlessly impressed by genuine all ages type stuff. I mean, there's such an explosion of YA, of middle grade, and I can appreciate that certainly at times. But something where it's like, this is kind of built for so many different types of readers. Like it's such an open fantasy world. You have younger characters, but then it's also like Andre's stuff is so referential of, like Moebius and like the Incal and and then just these cool sci-fi worlds. And it feels like you and Andre are just throwing every fantasy and sci-fi thing into this world. It's very exciting. So I was very excited for book 2, and I'm happy to have you here to talk about it.
I appreciate really cool that.
Stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the best part about putting out a second one is when people genuinely excited to read it. That's very flattering. It's really exciting that Like I woke up to that this morning, and people had just like tagged me in a post like, "Oh, just bought it." I'm like, "Oh, you bought the second one? That's even more flattering than buying the first one." So
Sure, yeah.
I really, it really is lovely. And what you said about YA, that's a big part of the journey here. Was like when we were first building what became the first graphic novel, and I do this with all new stuff. We don't label it genre or like age, or we just let it grow. We just let it be. And we got like 40 pages into Phenomena where I was like, wow, this really feels different. And I'm really excited about that. And then I literally went to Barnes and Noble and just walking around, and I saw what is now the YA wall of graphic novels, something that was not there 10 years ago, was not there when I was a kid. And I'm overwhelmed by it. It makes me so happy that it exists. And I'm looking at, and there's Miles and there's Riri. They're part of the wall. So like I'm technically a YA author, which is like, I came from crime fiction, so that was not the plan. But there I am, right? I have a bunch of them, and they're part of the conversation. And then I started to really like think about that wall, and I got really excited about like how I'm part of a generation of comic creators that grew up reading like Frank Miller and Alan Moore, and we are all of us, the Jason Aarons, and all of us are babies of that, right? And our choices are based on that, and a lot of our elevated ideas about what the medium can do are based on that, right? So I think about everyone growing up with Raina and Dogman, and I'm really excited about what the stories we're going to get coming out of this generation who are just consuming this stuff. And then part of that was thinking about how, yes, this is great that there's YA, but there's also places for people to grow with the medium. Like as we know, like when we were like first just reading because we loved a superhero, like, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I love this medium. Wait a second, I love this artist. I will follow them anywhere. And then all of a sudden you're in the medium more than you are the characters or anything. And once I saw what Andre was doing, and we showed it to other people, and we were like, I think this is in my heart a YA book or a general audience book and with that comes maybe we can say, hey, if you've been reading Dogman all these years, here's something else. Like here's something that isn't like. And also, there's a lot of people like ripping off Raina and ripping off Dogman. There's a lot. I'm a parent. I've read a lot of them. So there's some people like whole cloth in that space. I understand it, but I do think that there's a lot of kids or a lot of just readers of stuff that are looking for new stuff. And this, by the way, this goes beyond just kids and stuff. I think a lot about who buys comics and who buys independent comics, who buys creator-owned independent comics in this world where the world stories are all available to us 24/7. There's a way to get any story you want in any medium, right? Somehow, some way. And there's still people out there looking for new stuff, right? They're like coming to independent comics. What for? Because I want something else. I want something new. And I think about not to be Spider-Man on it, the power and responsibility on us to deliver that. And Andre just does that. So a lot of these thoughts went into developing Phenomena and putting it out into the world and making sure it stood its ground in that space. So yeah, a lot of thought went into just that idea that you're talking about, the YA space and how it's grown and our place in it.
It sounds like it. Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned I have a 7-year-old, and he within the last year is just a voracious reader. But he has read oh my gosh, I've been waiting, and it's here, and I'm so excited. And he's read every Dogman approximately 50,000 times, right? And there was a stretch where it was like he was like, "No, I only read Dogman." And I'm like, I think you just like reading. I'm like, I think you just like stories. And so finally I got him on Hilo, and I got him some other ones, and now we're just going, right? And now we're just going. But it's that thing of what you just said, which is I'm not the only parent asking this, and I spend a lot of time reading comics, so like I'm in the world, right, in that regard. But it's like so many people right now are asking, my kid likes Dogman. What else should I read?
Yeah,
right? Where do I go next? And having good options that aren't just like Dogman Light is really important right now. And you see a lot of creators trying to, like you said, like there's there's the success of Reina, and
Mhm.
then there's just the space of people like, I don't know, in some regards, like chasing that, in some regards, doing their own thing, I think very authentically.
Yes.
But it's like anything, right? It's a
You know
mix.
what? I'll even take it away from the creators because I want to be like particularly people who are influenced by Reina are coming at it looking for the truth. So
Yeah,
I celebrate that top to bottom. It's more about the publishers all making everything look the same.
yeah,
Like, well, that everything gets packaged into a Dogman box, even if it's not Dogman shape. So it's
right.
more like that than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that. Um, no, it's a very exciting time, and I am excited when I feel like I can hand him Phenomena, Golden City of Eyes. Like I'm really excited. I started to go to Amulet the other night. He was having like a tough
Mhm.
evening. I'm sorry, I'm just like straight up
No,
dadding
please,
right
yeah,
now.
this is
And
what I want.
and I read the first chapter again. I was like, let me check this out, see if he's ready for it. And it's all about, it's like the dad dies and like it's really sad. And I'm like, no, this isn't emotionally where we're at yet.
I have discovered just a parenting tip. I have 4 kids that are older than yours, so this is what I've done. If
Yeah.
I think there's a book they'll like, I just leave it laying around.
Yeah.
I just put it
Yeah.
in their room and I don't say a word
Yes.
and let them gravitate to it on their own. The difference in how they take it in is enormous. Like if I go, you should read this, they'll like maybe do it as like a all right, like an obligated favor to dad or
Yeah, yeah.
something. And but the difference of I think you'll like this and just leave it there and don't say why. And like that, let them discover, even if there's something like a darker or more challenging in the narrative. I've found, particularly with my older kids, they appreciate. Oh, you respect me enough to let me even read it. Like there's like it's like a respect that gets talked about later. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. My wife suggested basically that to me, which was like, you should just put it in his bed. And I was like, I think he wants me to hand sell it to him. And that did not go well.
But
She wasn't for it.
no, the difference is like if they come to you and they start asking questions about it, home run, you nailed it. That's
Yeah.
it. Now you get to sell it to them on their terms.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay.
yep.
Okay. I love it. How
Same thing
did
goes, by the way, with a lot of Marvel and DC stuff with my son. Like he's been consuming, like he started binging Legends of Tomorrow, and that just like that opens up like 15 trails of comic book nerdiness.
absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, it's
Amazing.
great.
How has, I mean, obviously, and you said your kids are a little bit older. At this point, do you find yourself not necessarily writing for them, but like, is it back of your mind like, I'm I want to have works that they're going to be able to read sooner, as opposed to like, I don't know, like does any of that like writing for your kids or
It
like just
does,
where they're
but
at
not.
legacy?
It does, and I've heard like a couple actors recently talking about how they only make choices based on like the family and the kids and who how the kids seeing like their parents up on screen or something. And I do some of that struck me as truthful. Like when I started this career, there was no wife and kids, and I'm only thinking of myself as a creator, and so and then also like you couldn't even perceive of the Miles situation of the world and what it's brought to our family. So now that I know that like that's there, yeah, I do sometimes like make again very Spider-Man like power and responsibility. Like I the privilege of being published. Like let's make sure we have something to say and something valuable to offer everybody. I think that's more like where I go with it, and that also turns into and then my kids would probably not be embarrassed if I'm in that lane. But their kids are going to be embarrassed. I'm dad. They're going to be embarrassed no matter what I do. So, but yeah, I do. I find myself also. I'm surrounded by them all day, so their stories and their energy, and this happened to my friend, and that all like enters my headspace all the time. It's been decades of it. So
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big part of it.
You
Also,
mentioned
and also, it as I get older, I was sitting there going, "Oh, I remember feeling that way." Like I remember exactly how I felt when I was your age, and the similarities and the differences, and so I'm constantly like writing all the different ages at once because I'm fascinated by that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
mentioned
that, by the way, which is what Masterpiece really is a bunch of people of different ages all in the same space having a different opinion or experience about it.
okay. Yeah, I could see that. You know what it kind of reminded me of, and it's not tonally on the same wavelength, but like probably folks who dug Only Murders in the Building, especially the first season, just in the sense of like,
Oh, I'll take that. Thank you. Yeah,
yeah, just
yeah, yeah.
intergenerational dynamics, how fun
Mhm.
that can be sometimes, and just like
Totally.
the way the Selena Gomez character is constantly ribbing, Steve Martin and Martin Short, and but it's like there's this like love and kind of development,
Oh, yeah, I love that so much. And with Phenomena, you have like the two littles, who are kind of orphans of the Phenomena, being hanging around with Spike, this heroic creature from somewhere else that we're slowly figuring out who, what, and where everybody is. And it's another way to just kind of connect people on a journey.
Yeah.
Everyone has something to learn from everybody. It's part of one of my things I learned from Stanley.
Well, and that's a big part of book 2, right? In terms of the messaging and in terms of what you're conveying there. There's a I don't want to give anything away, right? Because I really think these are incredibly well towards the end, right? Matilda's Quest, right? It's the name of the book, right? But Matilda she's going back to her where she's from, meeting up with her brother, and seeing basically she's walking into a civil war, right? She's walking into just this long held animosities. There are obvious contemporary political parallels just in terms of state of the world. Unfortunately, like there's kind of always a version of that.
Yeah, by the way,
right?
I wrote this a couple of years ago. Any modern reveal you have is just the fact that this is kind of the truth we've been living in for a very long time.
Right, which is sad.
Always a version of something like this where there's for people who know what we're talking about, Phenomena is about Earth. Something happened to the Earth years ago, not apocalyptic, something maybe a little more interesting, where large populated areas of the world have been overrun by a phenomena kind of effect where everything has been redesigned and altered, and there's creatures and there's like almost combinations of imaginations all coming together in one space. And in the first book, we get to meet everybody and everything and see how it goes. But for book 2, Matilda needs to go home. Like Matilda has run away from home, and now we, with her new friends and the power of that friendship, are going back to face whatever she ran away from. And when we go back to what is basically the London, England area, Verona of the Phenomena, we see that her family is very involved in a civil war-like fight that does not need to be continuing, but seems to continue constantly. It cost her parents, and it's still going on. And so she comes back a little older, a little wiser, and with the support of her friends to kind of face it and maybe come at it with a new truth and see if she can do with the arrogance of youth, see if she can stop it. And maybe that's exactly what is needed.
Yeah. No, it hit, I think, in very effective ways. It's one of those things where I think, you can tell, like, okay, this was definitely written before our particular moment right now, but you found a broader truth in it that I think extends to different like circumstances. And I think that's certainly what I imagine you're striving to do. I'm curious with the decision where, so you have a reveal in this kind of like what the phenomena was. And we have this, like, the other faction in the Civil War has like a collection of like everything left behind. And it kind of, it signifies, without giving it totally away, that like this world is not that different from our, like, this is kind of like, an alternate future of sorts. You mentioned it as apocalypse. It often doesn't feel like an apocalypse story. Is this another example of you and Andre being like, hey, what version of an apocalypse haven't we done before?
No, it's also sometimes you make choices or kind of like an answer comic, you know what I mean? And it's like, I just saw an enormous amount of apocalyptic fiction, which I completely understand. Everyone's home alone in their room, freaking out, freaking out as you're creating. And I had the benefit of Andre, who was just showing me all these designs and all of these ideas, and every one of them, none of them were apocalyptic. They were joyful. They were building on an idea. And I was like, well, that immediately puts me in a space like, well, don't do what everyone else is doing, which is apocalyptic. Let's try something else. And even the fact that I was having trouble defining it made me excited. Like we're looking for something else, and if I could name it, then it wasn't something else. And that's harder to do, more exciting to do. And I do think, going back to what I said earlier, kind of why people look at comics, like And also I looked at like my influences were like things like the original Avatar the Airbender and other kinds of I guess fantasy, but not really, not in the traditional fantasy tropes, you know. And I got very inspired by that. And like, well, maybe we can build our own from scratch using what Andre has already put together here. So yeah, and also I knew like we're gonna have to probably wait a couple of volumes before people go, oh, okay, you know, like now I see what it is with that, because you want to do this all without spoon feeding it. I didn't want to like open the first book of Phenomena and go, and many years ago there was a phenomena, you know, and like do the Star Wars scroll. I wanted to, you know, throw you in the middle and let's figure it out together.
Yeah, interesting. What was your favorite shift from book 1 to book 2? Whether it was ways of working, just where the story can go now. What did you enjoy the most?
Number one, that behind the scenes there's a collaboration, and with a collaboration comes a million choices, and I really love collaboration. It's like literally what I'm addicted to the most in comics. So here I am with Andre, who's a relatively new collaborator, even though we've done a couple little bits here and there to build to this. We're building a very demanding assignment. Like whereas basically every time a character looks to the left or right, we have to build something new. Like everything is brand new, right? So the fact that we got to the end of it and we're so excited to do the second one, we couldn't wait. Instead of going, hey, you know, I'm going to take a break from you, and it was we couldn't wait to get. And we've already finished the third one. It's finished.
Yeah,
in the vault. It's being lettered as we speak. It's an amazing feeling. So it was the fact that, and I've had this experience with a few other people in my life, like Alex and Mike Oming, where you're like, oh shit, it's working. Let's see how far we can push it. Let's see how many things we can stand on each other's shoulder and reach. And we talk about a little bit actually in the book itself, because it's a big like philosophy behind the book, is the Lennon and McCartney bit, the third heat, whereas like there's something that I can do, I'm really proud of it. There's something that Andre can do, he's really proud of it. But there's something we can get to together that we can't get to by ourselves. Like I can't get there. I can't get there without Mike Oming. I can't get there without Alex Maleev. I can't get there without David Mack and our Alex, all these people. And I've learned it. And it gets very, very celebratory in my head. Like, oh, we're there. We're in that beautiful third space that is unreachable without this. And so the whole of the second and third volumes was making sure that that was what we were doing. Like we were using that space to the best of our ability. And so even the second volume not taking place anywhere near where the first volume takes place, like everything, it's all brand new. Very Empire Strikes Back. Like, oh, you like Star Wars? Great. We're going to another planet. Yeah. But I really love that. I love like, well, let's go somewhere else and find new things and new experiences. And literally by page 10, we're like, oh, that's what happened. Like it's a very exciting thing to be part of.
Yeah. How do you sort of make sure when you're collaborating with someone, you know, like Andre, and obviously you have all these other, you know, kind of you build these relationships, right, with creators where you're a pairing, but you're also like, for comics readers, like you're a package, right? Bendis Maleev, like Bendis Oming, like fans know this. They know that what that means when it's that particular collaboration. With Andre and Phenomena, what are the things where, because I'm sure it's different with each collaboration too, right? You're songwriting with a different person. What do you make sure that you do? Yeah.
Well, it is, and I'll tell you what I do. My number one go-to that always works is I never I take myself out of the situation as much as possible. My service is to, how do I make Andre, how do I get this out to the public in the best way possible? How do I celebrate what's happening here? Also, a lot of the people I work with, even though I can draw, I can't draw anywhere near. Like I'll never be able to do what Andre does. So in my heart, the celebration I'm feeling is enormous. Like it's like, so I'm not just like pretending. I'm really trying to share with you how I feel about the work in front of me. And that, like, I get an email every morning with a big giant spread in it that rattles me to my core. And I just can't wait to share it with everybody. So I try to write and function as a creator in service of Andre. And I learned this, and it's funny because it's one of Andre's influences. But when I was looking at the work, I was reminded of G.F. Darrow, and I was reminded of how when I was first introduced to his work in a graphic novel from Dark Horse called Hardboiled, which is written by one of my heroes, Frank Miller. And I was literally buying the book because Frank Miller wrote it, right? And in it, I believe Frank talked about how he was writing completely different from Geoff, because his job wasn't to be Frank Miller. His job was to service what Geoff was bringing to us. And I took that as that is what I need to do here for Andre. I need to be in service of this. And by doing so, I'll probably, knowing what I know, end up being the best version of myself, because that's what the job should be. No ego. Sorry, puppies. So hold on. Kids coming home.
The puppies love collaboration. Totally understandable. We'll give Brian a second there. Hey, thanks for everybody who is here live with us. Appreciate y'all being here. If you do have any questions for Brian, get them in here in the chat, and we will address as many as we can with the limited time we have available.
If you saw how tiny this puppy was, you would laugh your butt off. It's like a 5-pound puppy.
It'd be quite the fake out, given that the size of that bark.
Right, it's totally funny. Sorry about that. Anyway, kids are literally coming home as we're talking, so that's what the noise is. So it's about how can I service this, and that's my best collaboration moments with anyone I've ever worked with is when I'm genuinely egoless and in complete service of what's happening in front of me.
That's really interesting.
And I share that with all my students, by the way, because with writing, even the most humble of writers, there's I'm writing, I would like you to read it. There's an ego there.
Yeah, right.
I want to be heard, I want to be seen, and then you kind of realize that kind of following the opposite idea can get you closer to what you want people to experience in your work.
Yeah.
But you have to really mean it. You can't just fake it. I'm fake humble, Anyway.
Yeah.
Come here. She's literally just sitting there going at nothing.
Very good. What can you tease about Phenomena Book 3? Or if you say too much, the dog's definitely going to.
Hold on. London, take the puppy. There you go. Hi, sweetie. I'm on a call. Thanks. Sorry, guys. The talk about privilege. The fact that I can tell you. Not in theory, but in actuality. We've already written and drawn it, and like book 2, we go to Matilda's world. We return to Matilda's world. Not to spoil, by the end of it, Bolden, her friend and lead of the book, kind of realizes that it's his turn, that he also ran away, and we get the sense that he ran away from something very phenomena specific, very he knows something more about the phenomena than everybody else. And they're going to go find out what happened in the third book. So Bolden goes home with his new friends and faces what happened, not only to his parents and his family, but to the phenomena itself.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm looking forward to book 3. I think people who haven't read this definitely need to check it out. It's good stuff. I mean, listen, it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up your butt because I got you here on the call. But when you talk about the egoless approach and this book, I was surprised with the first book. I've read a lot of your work, right? I came in on Ultimate Spider-Man and Alias and all that stuff. Really got me into Marvel Comics and just comics in general. And it feels less like you in all the really good ways.
Thank you.
It shows. Yeah. So when you say that's the goal,
and we're part of having a couple years under your belt is that you build up some tricks and tools over the years, as a writer, and then one.
Uh-oh.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Just froze you for a minute.
All right. Yeah. No, I just was gonna say that you kind of just realize that that's the best stuff when you can just get away from yourself, and when you have friends and collaborators that can look you in the eye and tell you time to put away your tricks, new tricks. You did those. Do something else. And I have trusted friends that inspire me to be better and try new things, and that's kind of part of collaboration too. Is just having other creators in your life that that inspire you to do better.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, people know, like I'm very close with Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue. Like, how do you be in a room with them without trying really hard as a creator? Like, you know what I mean? Like they're wailing 24 hours a day. How do you just to have dinner with them? I have to work really hard.
Sure, I can see that.
Ooh.
Now you've got a Amazon first look deal for Jinx, Murder Inc.
Yep.
Pearl TV adaptations. That's super exciting.
It is.
Amazon right now they announced plans for a Brubaker Phillips Criminal. Sounds like there's a lot of cool comics adaptations.
Ed's actually in my house right now.
What's in your house?
Ed is living here. Yeah, while he's preparing his show. Yeah.
There you go. Amazing. Do you feel like it seemed like for a minute there was an appetite for all the comics adaptations. And then it was kind of like, well, okay, but what's actually getting out? Like, do you feel like it's recovering? Do you feel like it's a good place for comics getting adapted, or is it just very particular case by case?
Oh, it's case by case for sure. And I've worked with excellent executives and executives who refuse to read the comics they're adapting. I've done all the versions, and right now I'm at Amazon, where not only myself but quite a few creators find themselves in a very healthy, happy space where they're getting to develop their idea even further. And I got to tell you, I've said this years ago on a podcast. If I ran a studio, I would literally go right to the comic book source and like give Ed and Matt and like Greg Rucka and like all these people, Marjorie, Lou, all the people who are building original worlds from scratch, and just let them do it for me. I was just like that would be my network. Yeah. And there's a version of that that's going on Amazon right now that I'm very, very happy to be a part of.
Yeah.
Really cool. Like even like Amazon, like when they made the offer to do the first look, which I've always wanted to do, I had a little bit of shit. How do I pick which projects we develop? Like some of these I'm in partnerships with my closest friends. How do I pick? Like how do I say what's the one that needs to be? And thankfully Amazon picked. So Amazon, no, it was a huge relief because it took. And also Amazon really surprised me with their choices, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
Pearl was not built for Hollywood's attention. Like everything about it is, we're making comics, and I'm thrilled that where it's headed. And Murder Inc. is me and Mike's favorite book. And for someone else to turn and goes, that's our favorite too. And I'm like, oh, thank you. It's just that alone was just so delightful. And I'm, as we speak tonight, writing a draft of Jinx, which is me adapting myself from many years ago, and that's a very weird experience.
Yeah,
and but I'm enjoying it immensely. It's a modern interpretation, and it's not like I was really like even like how do I do this? And like I'm a different writer, it's a different world. And then Scott Pilgrim came out with that like reinvented version of it for anime, and it really it's inspired me. Like I even reached out to Brian O'Malley. I was like, that's what I need to see. You're just writing it again as if it from today's perspective, and it's just such a great way to do it. So that's what I'm doing with Jinx.
Interesting. Yeah. Now I just read Fortune and Glory for the first time, and that details in really fun and kind of captivating detail, like your first exposure to the Hollywood adaptation system. You've got Fortune and Glory the musical, which I think it's going out through like Jinxworld Substack stuff, but it's also
we're not doing Substack anymore, but we're at jinxworld.com. You can read it right now if you want. You can read Fortune and Glory the musical, which is a whole graphic novel about my short, brief time as the writer of the Spider-Man Broadway musical debacle. And I've held on to this story for a bit, and it finally became like this great way to like wrap around all my thoughts and feelings about comics and growing up, how we grew up. And so it's a real autobiography, but it's all based on this abysmal, crazy failure of the Spider-Man musical, which I had no business being anywhere near. And so it's very exciting to share these ideas. When the first Fortune and Glory came out, I was overwhelmed because I got that experience of I'm sharing embarrassing stories just to kind of get them out of me. And then immediately felt the effect of people like commiserating with me and like, oh, good. it wasn't just me. Like a lot of people were feeling how I was feeling, even if they're not in Hollywood, they're just in an office. You know what I mean? Like not being able to communicate with their people around them. It just the overall feeling of it was one of the things that really connected me to people in a way that like you can't with things that aren't directly autobiographical. It's just a really intense feeling. It's really amazing.
Do you feel like there's a certain amount? No, do you feel like there's a certain amount of freedom in having been through it a number of times? Like now that you got this Amazon deal and you're just like, because like big picture, like I don't like weird stuff can happen, right? Like you've seen it a lot, and fingers crossed it all goes great. But like, do you just feel like at peace with kind of where it's at?
I get very zen about it. I work really, really hard. Like I'm working really, really hard, and I've had enough things happen that it doesn't feel like a lottery ticket so much. It's to work really hard and hope for the best. And I've worked really hard and hope for the best, and things just exploded. Like and it had nothing to do with me. It just things didn't go well, or like even like I think our biggest thing right now, and you asked about Hollywood, is that since pandemic, there's been everything in that space has been in such flux, just constant movement, like executives coming and going, merging, unmerging, streaming, unstreaming, like there's a constant flux, and there hasn't been like an era where everything's been like calm and things have been made in. It's just a lot of people throwing stuff at the wall and hoping for the best. And that is very different than even when the first Fortune and Glory came out. So I think about that, and I think about just do your best and do the parts you can control.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell that to all creators, just like Hollywood can be great. Give it your all, but do not sell your soul. And like if someone calls you and hires you to do something, it's because you have something to offer, and you should do that. You should give them what you offer, not just repeating their words back to them. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great outlook.
Definitely. Yeah, and also like we're in a space like if Hollywood follows comics, there is waves in comics where superheroes are very in vogue and everyone's involved with what's going on at Marvel, DC, and then there's times where people weigh into like what's going on in Image or Dark Horse and other independent spaces are more the rave, and I think Hollywood kind of is headed towards following that more than they think they are, whereas as whatever, like slowing down the superhero, I'm hesitant to say the fatigue, because they just need to slow it down a little bit and make sure these things have a point. But with that going on, they still need content, and these independent worlds and independent comics are really where some unique, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about my friends and peers are really building unique things that are so genre boundless that that you can't help but look at that and say, well, that could easily be the future of television and film. So I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I mean, it's not hard to imagine, like, you mentioned Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, like, let's get a monstrous adaptation
I want a monstrous adaptation as faithful as the Fallout adaptation. Like I thought Fallout was the best shows I've seen in like 5 years. Like I
did not see that coming, but it's
me either at all, and I loved it. I loved it. Every move they made was like from a writing perspective, it's like golf clap. Like even if like all the moves of like fiction, I did not know where they were going, and that's a great feeling.
Yeah, no, it's really good stuff. Now, I'd be remiss, you mentioned kind of the fatigue, I suppose, but I think really it's just an appetite for variety in a lot of cases. Yeah. But obviously something that has not suffered from this is Into the Spider-Verse, which you've had involvement with, obviously co-creator of Miles Morales.
Grateful for that, by the way.
Yep. What is your like involvement? Like, what's your role that you can share with folks?
I'm an executive producer. Executive producer of the franchise, and I'm a consultant for Lord & Miller. And when they call, I pick up, and I get to see cuts. I get to see choices. I'm often the funniest thing they do is you back?
You said the funniest thing they do, and then I lost you, and it was such a good cliffhanger.
Well, like I'll get like a 10 o'clock text. Yeah, what's up? What's Miles' exact birth date? Like, like I am the keeper of the truth. And when they find themselves with a question, they call, or what do you think of this? The gift of the Spider-Verse is so multifaceted in my life. It is not just, oh, great, it's a good movie and I'm so excited. You know what I mean? And I get to take my kids to see things and they get to experience it too. But the fact that there's a project out there where 1,000 of the Sorry. Anyway, so are you back? You're very frozen.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, you were very frozen.
Let's try this one more time.
Yeah, it's not me. I'm literally getting texts and emails while we're going, so I know my internet's working.
Okay, good.
No, but it just they're on the last Spider-Verse movie, there was over 1,000 people on staff. They are among the best animators, comic book creators, storytellers, musicians in the world, and they're all working on Spider-Verse and they're all getting paid. It's the best. Some of my favorite artists in the world are working on this. It's just unbelievable to me. So just my film nerdness hits the highest level. I can't believe it. Also, I must say, I've talked about this with some of my friends, the fact that we as creators get to like be in the game while it's happening. Like a lot of our heroes did not live to see their creations see the light of day. If you read, again, not comparing myself, but Jack Kirby often referred to how great it would be to see these things on screen, and he had visions of it, and it happened. Avengers Endgame, like it happened, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't get to experience. So the fact that I get to sit in a theater with my kids and experience it is a gift beyond measure.
Awesome.
And also, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to figure out why Miles brings out the best in so many creators, both in comics, games, film. I don't think it's anything to do with me. It just deeply fascinates me, and everyone brings their truth to it, and it's just phenomenal. Everything I've ever wanted.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything where they've asked you about Miles where you were like, is there anything you like added, like new, like that, like what, like it wasn't there in the comics, and then they asked you something like, you know what, I never put that down on paper before, but like,
well, we talked about in great length, and now it's out so people can see it. But like in the comics, Miles' relationship with his father is very different, and at least during my years, and so the fact that it's so famously love you, dude. It's part of like almost the theme of the book. The movies is amazing. I'm deeply fascinated by the similarities and differences, both emotions and stuff. Yeah,
like a shift like that, but it's a huge emotional part of the franchise.
Yeah, so my whole run was, oh no, his dad and him don't get along. Like they just don't get each other yet.
Yeah,
and let's start there. Like even one of the things about Miles is he has his parents. Like he's the only person in Marvel who actually has both his parents.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's the and we talked about that a lot. Like what would be the difference and what would happen, and oh, wouldn't it be great if you had if there was a superhero had his parents? Oh, but there's also problems if you have your parents, and that's where we are with it. Where we were with it. So it's fascinating to see the difference.
Gotcha. Very good. I saw a quote in Fortune and Glory. You said, you were there in the early stages of like the MCU being developed. I'm curious. You're talking about, like the creators are in these meetings, right? Like the people actually making the comics. Whereas obviously historically, like, that wasn't necessarily an opportunity that was available to some of these amazing people we hold up, in such high esteem. Do you feel like the comics writers, comics artists, like yourself, get I don't want to say get enough credit, but like
no, they don't get enough credit. No,
right? There's a lot of like
individual
Feige, and it's like, what about the individuals who are there, like in the room?
I am very grateful. My name is up front in Spider-Verse. It is top billing. I think all comic creators who have significantly contributed to the stories for Disney and Warner Brothers should be accredited as if they were the same rights that come to a working writer like, there's for those who don't know, like if you write the first draft of a screenplay, there's a pretty good chance you're getting credited, right? That's the rules, and I think rules should apply to the comic creators as well. I think there should be above the line, and I know that particularly with Marvel, there's a lot of stew. There's like 20% Hickman, 30% Jason. Like there's a mixture of some of this stuff, and that sometimes once the movie is done, it's pretty evident and obvious. And I would be nice if everyone was credited and properly enumerated, as it were, if that's a word, if they were taken care of. And some are very well taken care of, and some are not. And hopefully the shame of that will eventually stop it, and everyone will get paid what they deserve. So yeah, I do. It's been going on. The MCU is almost 20 years old now, which is amazing, right? Just alone at MCU, and Spider-Man and Blade came out, late 90s, early 2000s. So it's been 25 years of this, and all the mediums have evolved. All of the relationships to the mediums have evolved, and comic creators have now revealed themselves to be the backbone of most of our culture, of the pop culture, and they should be taken care of accordingly.
Yeah.
So that's it. And I treat myself that way. Like my wife, thankfully, is excellent at this and makes it easy for me to stand my ground on this. But I try to tell other creators, treat yourself accordingly, because they're not wired to do it. You have to treat yourself with respect and show this is what I need. And again, there's other creators that do this, like Mike Mignola, like who have just do it. They just don't, like, I'm film ain't happening without me. I'm the person that thought of it. I should be treated accordingly. And if not, then I'll find someone who will.
Yeah.
So and again, there's Hollywood is Hollywood. The house full of, built from gangsterism, and it's still in the woodwork, and we just have to know that and act accordingly.
Amazing. Love it. All right. I got one final question.
But it's a very serious subject, and not a lot of people bring it up.
Oh, so. Yeah. No, it is. It is. I mean, I feel like people feel like it got solved. Sometimes it's like we're and it's like, no, it hasn't.
No. Any comic creator mentioned in the credits at the end of a movie, those credits should be in the front of the movie before executive producer, in my opinion.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. I got to ask you one question about 2006, 2007. Take a little time machine back. Okay. We got My Marvelous Year. It's the podcast we do where we go through the history of Marvel Comics. We're in the 2000s. So we are fully in your territory of
Sure.
Avengers, New Avengers. I wanted to ask you something. So one of my theories is I love it when the Marvel Comics universe has like a very clear center. Like someone is driving, or someone's, right, or driving like what feels like sort of a tonally cohesive center of the Marvel universe. Your run on New Avengers from like 04 to 12, it feels very clear like what the center of things are. You're writing a lot of the events in that. What do you think allowed for that to happen? Like, in addition to like your own skill, but like what, like big picture allowed for it to feel so tonally connected?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And I will say, about when Secret Invasion, the TV show, was coming out, I was emailing back and forth with some of my former Marvel bosses, and I did say, I think in my heart, like that's us at our best. Like the comic book Secret Invasion, like we had built all the way through from Avengers Disassembled up. This great, even though Marvel's been around for decades, like, about every 10 years, it's a new company. Same thing with Warner Brothers, or, like new people are in charge and they have a new vision, and they built up a new staff. And with Marvel, they were coming out of bankruptcy. I mean, it was a new company, right? So I got to work for this Marvel coming out of bankruptcy, making big swings because they had no other choice, either big swing or we're done, right? And so they're making big swings, which include getting financing for the Iron Man movie, and hoping for the best. And with every choice in year, they were building and building and building. And by the time we got to Secret Invasion, it felt like we had built everything you needed to build to be who we were and to do what we do and to feel how we were feeling about it. And I said, I think this was us at our absolute best for like emotionally, spiritually, like the physical machine of Marvel, like everything was kicking ass. So I think that's what you're feeling as well. It's just I got to walk in the door while they're in bankruptcy. They solve the bankruptcy. They put Joe in charge. Joe has a vision, off to the races. Ultimate Spider-Man work. Here we go. And then, all of a sudden we're in the room trying to figure out how to put Spider-Man and Wolverine on the Avengers. And then, but yeah, so some of it is just sheer force of will. It's like Joe and Tom and Dan Buckley and everyone just deciding, let us make some really good comics. Let us not, we've got, I remember one of them saying, these are the greatest characters of all time. How could we fuck this up? Come on. And so this is, we all came at it and we're all on the same page. And, I think that's what you were feeling. And I agree with you that both shared universes work better when there's architects, not just one. I think, I do think like around Avengers versus X-Men, it was a bunch of us and we were all liking each other and we had all different things to offer. Like, me and Matt and Ed are still very close and we're talking, about that experience and how we all had something to offer the boy band, and so I do think that it does work, but it also has to be the right people. It can't just be somebody. Just because you're good at one part of the business doesn't mean you're going to be good working a writer's room or collaborating with a larger set of creators. I mean, that alone, like when you're working on Secret Invasion, I'm not just collaborating with Laniel and Tom. It's 50 people working at Marvel. Like they're all the solo titles and all the tie-ins and stuff. You're working with a lot of people, and not everyone's built for that. And I'm not saying that as a compliment, but you have to grow into the world, and some people can do and some people can't. And by the way, there's a lot of things in comics I can't do either that I'm like, well, I'm not built for that. So I do think it's for those who want to do it, you have to learn more than just writing, but you have to learn some managerial skills. You have to learn respecting other people and their talent skills. And I'm always eager and hopeful for creators to have the exact same experience I had. Like,
is Secret Invasion your favorite of the bunch, or is it just
an
example of like the machinery? Just like
I don't have a favorite. I just remember feeling very strong. Like, wow, look, just when everyone's in the zone, like like marketing was killing. Like marketing killed on Secret Invasion. Like everyone was elevating the space everywhere they went. I just remember it feeling like a big party of yeses, and then the audience was kind of into it. Like that was the other one too. Is like we dropped a big haha, it's a scroll, and I remember thinking, boy, if nobody likes this, we got 2 more years of it. So we're locked in. So I was very grateful that people were into it.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Listen, I hate to break up. I do have a 3 and I got to run, but I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm deeply appreciative of not only you. Oh, there's my 3 o'clock.
There's the alarm. Hey, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Have at it with your next meeting, and thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it, Brian.
All right, we'll talk again soon. 3rd book. Talk to you next year.
Absolutely, sounds good.
All right,
take care.
Thanks a lot.
All right, y'all. That's gonna do it here with Brian Michael Bendis. Incredibly generous individual, given the outsized fame. A pleasure to talk to. And I may take him up on that as far as when book 3 comes out. Trying to have him back on. I'm glad I got to get in the My Marvelous Year 06-07 question. That was one that I was like, how do I, because it's always a little awkward when you're like, you want to talk about the current work, right? But it's also like, well, I kind of just want to live in 20 years ago, but that's 20 years ago for them. So thanks everybody for joining here live. Really appreciate it. Get in, any of your thoughts here in the comments and I'll scroll through them. Otherwise, thanks for joining. We'll be back next week on Wednesday with Rob doing from Comics Explained, doing an X-Men 97 post-game show. That's going to be next week's live stream. But thanks to those of you who joined live. We'll get this out on the podcast and the channel as well for those who want to catch up later. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy the comics.